The Canon M6 Mark II's firmware update is finally here. Now this is very important for anyone wanting to shoot video on the M6 Mark II because the firmware update finally adds the missing 24 frames a second back into the camera. So for some unexplainable reason, Canon released a few cameras in mid-2019, including the 90D and the EOS RP, with no 24 frames a second. They had 30 frames a second, and that sounds similar, but if you don't know the specifics of it, it's not going to give you that correct amount of motion blur and just that cinematic look that you'll get from 24p. So those other cameras got their update a little while ago, and the M6 Mark II users have been left waiting, but the wait is over, and in this video I'm going to show you how to just quickly and effortlessly install that firmware update, where to get the free download, all of that good stuff, so you'll be up and running with your 24p in no time. Hello friends, I'm Alicia and this is AMaeTV, where I help you level up your vlogging and video production skills. And although I do discuss all aspects of creating and editing videos, when it comes to gear, I tend to stick with talking about Canon's entry-level to prosumer line of compact, mirrorless, and point-and-shoot cameras. So that includes the Canon M50, the Canon G7X, if you want to go really lightweight, and now the Canon M6 Mark II, which may be the latest and greatest vlogging camera. We will see. So if leveling up your video production in 2020 is a goal of yours, consider subscribing to the channel. Also hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the info that I am putting out there, especially about the M6 Mark II. Now, as far as I know, I am the first one to create a tutorial about how to update the firmware on the M6 Mark II, or to even discuss that it has been released, because Canon didn't really make a big deal about the fact that it was released. But I just want to keep this process as simple as possible for you, and I'll let you know right now that you can find all the links that you're going to need in the video description below, including the link to the free firmware download from Canon, and the link to the M6 Mark II if you're still kind of checking out the camera and deciding if it might be right for you. So if you are watching this much later than 2020, and maybe you're not sure if your camera did ship with the new firmware, or if you even need to do this update, then what you can do is go into the camera, set that top dial to P. It's important because the menu settings are going to be different depending on what the top dial is set to. Go into the menu, go into the tool menu, and you'll see under firmware, if it has been updated, it's going to say version 1.1.0. And if it has not been updated, it's going to say version 1.0.1. So that's how you know if you even need to continue. And if you're still here, the first thing I will let you know is that you're going to need to have a full battery, completely full, in order to do this firmware update. You will also need a clean SD card. So if you have some content on your SD card, just go ahead and transfer it over to your computer, or back it up however you back it up, because you're going to wipe and erase that card. So it's got to be a clean card. You're also going to need a way for your computer to read the SD card. So if you have a MacBook from the golden era of MacBooks with an SD card slot, you can certainly use that. And if not, I've got a 2019 MacBook, so I'm using an SD card reader. So the first thing you're going to do on the camera is format your SD card. So like I said, again, make sure that top dial is set to P, go into menu, under the tool setting, and you're going to go to format card. And when you do this, like I said, it's going to erase all of your data and just kind of install a new filing system. Formatting an SD card is something you always want to do before you start shooting with a camera. For the most part, you can get away with not doing it, but it's very important here. So go ahead and just say OK, and your card will then be formatted. Then you're going to want to pop it out and put it into your computer, and use the link in the description below to head over to Canon's website to the M6 Mark II's product page. And then here we can just go down to drivers and downloads, select firmware, and then you're going to choose between Windows or Mac, depending on your operating system. We're going to select that we've read this entire disclaimer and hit download. So this little pop-up is going to tell you where to find that download file if you don't know where to find it on your computer. So I won't go over that, it's pretty basic, and it also depends on your operating system. On a Mac, of course, it's in the Downloads folder, and it is the DMG file. So we're going to double-click that, and it's going to pop open and expand into these two files. In the PDF folder, it's going to give you several options in several different languages. You're not really going to need this document unless you run into problems, because I found this document to be a little bit both vague and both overly detailed. So just listening to this video, I think would be a quicker process than reading through the document, but it's good to have on hand. It is important to read these warnings, these firmware update cautions. Basically, it's telling you once you say, hey, update the firmware, you don't want to turn off the camera, you don't want to mess with the buttons, you don't want to open the battery or anything weird like that. Just leave it alone. So now that your SD card is in the computer, you're gonna make sure you open that up and also open up that box that expanded with the two files. The one is going to end in .fir, that is the actual firmware. And all you have to do is grab that file, drag it over to the root directory on your camera's SD card. So basically that is just the base directory. It's not inside of any folder or anything like that. Just put it in that first kind of filing cabinet and make sure it's fully copied, and then you're going to follow the correct eject procedures for your SD card once it's fully copied. So on a Mac, you just drag it to the trash. So we're going to pop out the SD card, put it into the M6 Mark II, turn it on, go into the menu, and again in the tool menu, this time you're going to go to tool menu number 5, and you will see firmware. And it should say current firmware version is 1.0.1. It's going to give us an option to update the firmware, so we will just say, okay. Firmware update program in the most vintage font ever, but hang tight. It's going to say, please select new firmware version, as if there's multiples. So we just select the new firmware version and say, okay. And it will say updating now. So this is where we just set it down and let it do its thing. It doesn't take very long, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I already updated it, so I'm kind of reenacting it. Of course, it will tell you when it's done. And then the most exciting way to check whether or not the firmware has been updated properly, besides checking the firmware version, again, we're going to go into the camera settings and see that it does in fact now have 24p, which is actually says 23.98. It's never actually been 24p. So there you have it, 24p on your Canon M6 Mark II. Finally, thank you, Canon. Let's not do that to us again. That was weird. Yeah, 24p is important, and if you don't normally shoot with it, I suggest that you do, just as a base frame rate. If you are new to all of this and you want to learn some of the basics, there's a lot of great videos on this channel, including how to shoot slow motion, how to film yourself, how to get the best lighting, how to get stabilized video, all kinds of stuff like that. And if you are a new M6 Mark II user and you have any questions about the camera, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'm going to be publishing a video about the camera itself very, very soon. Kind of a comparison to the M50, but kind of just my own thoughts on the camera and how it performs as a vlogging camera. This isn't a camera review channel in the sense that I don't just review all the cameras. I only really talk in depth about the ones that I'm using and the ones that are kind of in that prosumer level of affordability and compactability, because I generally think of them as travel vlogging cameras. Not that anybody's traveling right now, but you get the point. So check out some of the other videos. Leave me a comment. Let me know if this was helpful to you, if you're excited about the M6 Mark II and the 24 frames per second. All right, guys, I'm Alicia, and I will see you in the very next video. Bye.